This section between Bat Creek Access and Canebrake is arguably the most remote, rugged, and visually stunning stretches of the entire 77-mile Foothills Trail. This section is 16.4 miles and cuts through the heart of the Jocassee Gorges, with the section highlights being Lake Jocassee, Horse Pasture River, Thompson River, Hilliard Falls, and a spur trail to lower Whitewater Falls. This is the parking lot for Bat Creek access to the Foothills Trail. There's a large parking lot here. It's 0.7 miles to the trail. This is the start of section A7. I think it goes for 16.4 miles. A bridge. At about 0.1 mile, the trail begins climbing. And you'll be double blazing. So, as you can see, we are double blazing here. This blue blaze takes you to lower Whitewater Falls, and I think it's about a mile off trail. I'm not sure we're going to do it this trip. 0.3 miles. Still climbing. You go through sort of thicket of mountain laurel, I believe. The flowers are in bloom. Very pretty. You can see all the time that the trail maintainers put into this trail. They had a big job to do after the ice storms and snowstorms in this area, and they did a really good job. So to all of those who did any work on the Foothills Trail, thank you. You did amazing. So about 0.4, maybe 0.5. See a double blaze. So at 0.5 miles, you make it to the top of the ridge, and the trail goes off to your left. You'll see a big sign here, and from here, Whitewater campsite is 0.1 miles past the site, which is a large designated campsite. We're at about 0.6 miles, and you come to the sign, and there I already see some people with the tent. This is Whitewater designated campsite. Trail goes that way. Campsite's down here. So to the left of the campground is a cistern. Where's your water source? Nice campsite for, I don't know, 8 to 10 people. Just left Whitewater Campground, 0.6 miles into the section. Another bridge. 1.7, another bridge. At about 0.9, you start this downhill. At about 1 mile, you'll see a double blaze on the tree and you join an old roadbed. At 1.1, you come across a spring. About 0.1 later, trail comes to another spring. At 1.3, the trail leaves the roadbed and goes uphill. North Carolina, South Carolina state line. At about 1.5, come to this great water source over this little 2-timber bridge. Just cross and continue on the green tunnel. .6, go down some steps and cross over another bridge. At about 1.7, climb up some stairs and join an old roadbed, which you will follow for about 0.4 miles. About 2 miles, you come over this creek and another bridge. And not even 0.05 past the last bridge, you have another little bridge. And go up some stairs. About 2.4, you begin a downhill to the Thompson River. At about 2.7, you descend along the river. Be on your left. And at some point, you cross over a bridge. Just after Thompson River Bridge, you have a beautiful little campsite here right next to the river. So if you like camping near water, this be it. You got a tent spot up there, maybe an awkward one right there. Go further down. There's a little makeshift fire pit. And maybe a space for one more campsite. But right down there's the water. Alright guys, so after crossing that bridge in that Thompson River designated campsite, the trail starts to climb moderately steeply out of this river gorge through a couple of switchbacks. At 3.1, you'll see a double blaze in the tree to your right. The trail continues off to your right and joins an old logging road. So been climbed ever since Thompson River. Looks like this continues up a little bit more. Alright, over now. The trail is going to continue uphill on this road, and this road goes for another 1.1 miles. So the trail follows this road for 1.1 miles. At 3.3. Into this little break. That sign here says the Foothills Trail continues this way. At 3.8, come to another bridge. Beautiful little water source here. Should be easy to fill up some water if you needed to. Right on the trail. So, a little bit about Thompson River that we passed. Thompson River is one of the hidden gems of the Foothills Trail. It's a beautiful scenic river. And this area that we're walking through, it gets over 90 inches of rain per year. So it's technically a temperate rainforest. Definitely feels like it with how green it is currently. At 3.9 miles, come to Cooley Creek campsite. Alright guys, this is Cooley Creek campsite. Got some benches, a fire ring. I think they have some bear cables as well. And further down you got some other campsites here. Very cool place. And there's some springs like 0.1, 0.2 miles if you're coming this direction, which will be your water source. Alright guys, at 4.1 the trail leaves the roadbed and turns off left. You'll see a double blaze on the tree, and you got a little unofficial campsite right there. And about 4.3, you got another little bridge over amazing little spring. And then you got a bunch of steps on the other side, as per usual. You have a bunch of steps here with a handrail. You need it. It's probably about 40 or 50 steps. And shortly thereafter, you come to another bridge. At 4.4, 4.5, you descend some steps. I think the trail's gonna dump us off on a gravel road that we cross. And then up next, so about 4.5 miles, get dumped off this old gravel road. And the trail continues past the Iron Gate Trail. There's an unofficial campsite right up there. And we go down some steps, cross yet another bridge. Right. And here's the side trail at about 5 miles to Hilliard Falls. Nice large campsite just before the falls, and someone put some logs right there. Hilliard Falls. All right, guys, we are at the Glen Hilliard campsite. Large, beautiful campsite. Fire ring, some benches, 2 fire rings. Could easily put 8 to 10 tents here. There's bear cables, but I don't know where as well. And it's right next to Hilliard Falls. And the water source is right down here. Painted some blue rocks to show you where to go, which is really cool. And that creek right there is your water source. Guys, so I'm at Glen Hilliard's campsite, and while I'm here, I figured I'd tell you a little bit about the history of this place, which is named after one of the first chairmen and one of the co-founders of the Foothills Trail conference, which was created as a nonprofit to help create, maintain, and use the Foothills Trail. So the conference was established in 1974, and within 5 years they had built the first 28 miles from Oconee to White River, and that became designated a national recreation trail. Shortly thereafter, about 2 years later, the full trail was completed, all 77 miles. Glen Hilliard discussed the early creation of the Foothills Trail and working with different partners and volunteer groups from Duke Energy to others to help create this amazing trail. And in particular, there were 2 Duke Energy power plant employees, Alfred Bedden and John Garton, who helped blaze a lot of the trails. And they were crucial to kind of the creation of the Foothills Trail as well. So the Foothills Trail is a culmination of really diverse groups coming together to create a common goal, the collaboration effort between various different groups, whether it's the FTC, Duke Energy, the U.S. Forest Service, the South Carolina Department of Parks and Recreation and Tourism, and the Sierra Group all came together to kind of help create this trail. So yeah, a little bit about the history of the location where I'm at. At about 5/5.1, you come across another bridge over a beautiful spring feeding the creek. Less than 0.1 from the previous video, you get another bridge over the creek. The trail of many bridges indeed. At about 5.3, you come to another bridge. This section's really pretty. Walk along this creek. 5.6, another bridge. Shortly after the other bridge, you have yet another 5.9, another bridge. Definitely a different feel from my earlier videos. Spring has sprung. Everything's more green and dense. So yeah, way different from my videos in early January, February. That's 6 miles more or less. You have another bridge. And I think you have a campsite on the other side of this bridge. There's a campsite right here. Trail takes you right through. Beautiful campsite. Holy crap, nice. Wow. So you have blue rocks here, taking you down to this creek for some water. A nice campsite. Wow. So it's 6 miles into this section. You have Bear Camp Creek campsite. Beautiful campsite. And you'll see these signs right here. And then you'll see some red blazes, some red rocks taking you to the bear cables right across. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's keep going. All right, guys, at mile 6.7, you come to the halfway point of the Foothills Trail. In about 7.4, you leave Duke Energy lands and you enter North Carolina game lands where hunting is permitted. Just an FYI. I don't see a sign anywhere here stating that, but maybe I missed it. It's a little further up. Yeah, you just follow that. Feels like we've been on that log road for over a mile. Nice little hiking through there, nice and easy. And guys, at about 8 miles, you come to this big bend in the road here. And a nice little water source here if you need it. Trail just continues over this way. At about 8.4 miles, the trail has a sharp left turn. You could throw a little dry campsite right there, be a little awkward. But yeah, now we're descending down to Horse Pasture River. And you'll start being able to hear it from here. 8.5. Trail goes up a steep embankment with some stairs. And back on a single track trail. And then down a set of steep stairs, which I'm not going to record. 8.6, another bridge. Lucy, go. Lucy. And another bridge. It's 8.6 mile Horse Pasture River Bridge. From here we start a moderately steep 1.5 mile, 800-foot elevation gain. About 9.2 into this bridge over a dry ravine. The bridge might need replacing at some point. And another bridge. Over another dry ravine. Ooh, that one's slanted. And 9.5 or 9.6. Come to another bridge. Over a dry ravine. Little bridge here. That is 9.7 miles. At 9.7, 9.8. My mileage on my watch is a little off. The guide says 9.7. You have a suspension bridge, 50-foot suspension bridge over dry ravine. At about 10.1, you come to a bridge, followed by another bridge, and you're about a mile from Bear Gap designated campsite, which is we're calling it tonight. About 10.9, you have this dense little mountain laurel bloom. You'll see the double blazes here on your right. Bareback Cable is behind us, marked. We're at Bear Gap Campsite. Nice campsite. Creek down below. So 11.1, you go over Bad Creek Bridge. We just left Bad Creek Campsite. And on the other side, there are several other campsites. So if that one's full, no worries. There's another one down there. And a little further up, there'll be another one. You have a little stealth one right here. So about 0.1 past Bear Creek campsite, you also have this campsite here. A little nicer than the other two. Not Bear Creek. You got a creek down there. No bear cables. But nice little campsite. Some wall benches. Water. So another nice little place. The trail is pretty level for these 0.2 miles. And then you begin a brief little uphill. And a series of uphills. One thing I will note on Bear Creek campsite is the place to go. Number 2 is a little rough. And everyone seems to go one spot. And it smelled. For sure. So you be careful about that. Level 0.4. Level 0.5. At 11.9, the trail leaves North Carolina game lands. And you'll see the double blaze on the tree back there. And you'll go through this little opening, and there's going to be some power lines above you. It's a power line cut. Yeah. We're now entering Gorgeous State Park, which has the densest population of black bears in South Carolina. 12.1-ish. Trail has this big U and goes around this ravine. I just love when the trails do that. You see the other side of the trail, and it's just gradual downhill here. So many ferns. This area is technically a temperate rainforest because of all the rain it gets. So you have one of the most densest spot of ferns, mosses, and salamanders. Actually, it's the Southern Appalachian Mountains is the most hot spot for salamanders in the country. So that's 12.3. You have a little water source right here. All right, 12.8, 12.9. Right before the stairs, you have a dry campsite here. Yeah, you can fit a tent or two. And then the trail will leave this old roadbed and take a sharp left up the stairs. At about mile 13, the trail dead ends and takes another sharp left. You'll see a double blaze right there on your treated right. Continues downhill. At 13.2, maybe 13.3, you come across another bridge. And as always, steps on the other side. And steps back down the other side. Dig on 0.05 past that other video, you have another bridge. (13.2), you have a bridge over Cobb Creek. Nice water source if you need it. Maybe that was a branch of Cobb Creek, and this is the rock hop over Cobb Creek, which is not a rock hop, it's just rocks all the way across. Pretty cool. And a steep climb out. About 13.5, 13.6, trail joins an old roadbed, and apparently alternates in and out of this roadbed a few times. So it goes off into the woods and then comes back over the next third of a mile. Let's see. At 14.2, you'll see a double blaze on a tree. The trail joins an old roadbed to the right, and I think we're going to be following several different roadbeds for the next mile and a third. At about 15.5, the trail's still on the roadbed, and I think you reach the top of the climb, and you start to go downhill here. I think we begin our descent now to Lake Jocassee. At about 15.8 or 0.9, you have this beautiful little stream and this little bridge. Trail continues downhill towards the lake. And about 16 miles, you have another bridge over a dry ravine right now, but in spring it probably has some water. So before we get to Lake Jocassee, I figured I'd tell you a little bit about the history of Lake Jocassee. So before Duke Energy dammed this area, this was almost the beating heart, if not the beating heart, of the Lower Cherokee Nation. Several towns, including the capital of the Lower Cherokee Nation, I'm going to say this wrong, Kiowa, I think, was here. And these ancient settlements, Cherokee settlements, are now underwater, as well as probably some private property that was used to make this lake and dam this for a hydro power plant. So we lost a little bit of history here with the loss of those towns. A lot of these names that you see on the Foothills Trails are nod to the Lower Cherokee Nations. Jocassee, for example, Oconee. A lot of these names are Cherokee names, or the phonetic versions of Cherokee names. So we do pay homage a little bit to that history. And today's Foothills Trail also traverses an old Cherokee path, which was a trading route from the capital of the Lower Cherokee Nation to all the way to the coast in Charleston. And yeah, off in the distance now to the left, you'll see the lake. And we're coming up at 16.4 to the Canebrake boat access point to the Foothills Trail. So the trail goes down there. And you got a little beachy area. Let me show you. Very cool.